Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to our Action Coach Business Educational webinars. And we're going to be talking about various topics on a monthly basis here, really to help business owners and executives to work smarter, not harder, so you could really enjoy more life. Today, we are going to be talking about how to become team rich by really building your team to grow your profits. We're going to really be talking about how to transform them into a really a championship team. That's what we want. That's what we really want, right? So who is this webinar really for? So think about it. You know, are you having a hard time trying to get and keeping good employees, or maybe your employees tend to sort of work in individual silos instead of having a common goal that they're all engaged in, or do you seem like you're working harder and your business really isn't growing as fast as you want, or maybe your business is doing pretty good, but you feel stuck and you're having a hard time getting to that next level. Or maybe you're spending all your days putting out fires that just keep popping up out of nowhere. So, and all of this is causing you to really possibly miss family events or friends events because you're spending so much time in your business. So what I'm going to say is there is a better way we're going to be talking about. And then in the next hour, 45 to 50 minutes, we are going to be talking about some of the fastest and easiest ways for you to increase team engagement, to create an amazing team. Really, most importantly, is be able to free up your time to help you improve your profitability, but most importantly, help you to be your best. So I want to welcome everybody. My name is Steve Goranson. I am going to be your coach here today. I've owned and operated the Jacksonville office here of Action Coach since 2014. I think I'm starting my 18th year right now. Action Coach itself is we are the world's largest coaching organization with over 1,000 offices in 70 plus different countries around the world. There's probably hasn't been a business issue or challenge that one of our coaches has not been presented with that we could not help. So my job here today as your coach for the time that we're going to have to better together is to sharpen your business intuition by showing you the factors that will help really make your businesses thrive, and really to most importantly create a high performance team by working on solutions that really matter. So the question I want to start off with is, what is the only failure, right? Really, the only failure in life is the failure to participate. You know, I've failed many times throughout my life, and I got a lot of the bruises working in small business. Hey, we all do in a way. But the whole point is here is if you don't give it a chance, you don't give it an opportunity, you can never succeed. So if you give 100%, you're going to get 100%. So if you have any questions, please post them in the question and answer spot. We'll try to get them throughout the webinar. And if I don't get to them all, I'll try to save some time at the end of the webinar that we can go in and talk about that. So I guess the thing that I want to say is, what are you going to expect from here in the webinar? And is what I like to say is BFOs. BFOs these are the blinding flashes of the obvious. They're the aha moments. You know, it's the moment where we sort of make connections between maybe two previous unknown but unconnected bits of information. And our role here is to help you stimulate some of these ideas to really help combine it. And it's not brain surgery stuff that we're going to be talking about. It's basic common sense. But I want you to be able to look at things that maybe you haven't looked at in the past, and how it could really, for you to really walk away today with at least 1, 2, or possibly even 3 strategies that you could take home tomorrow and start really working on in your business. Because today's webinar is really all about helping you become team rich. And we know what team stands for. Everybody's heard this before. It's together, everyone achieves more, right? So why do I have to say that? Because still, as we work together, sometimes we're building teams, people still tend to have that me mentality instead of a we mentality. And it's hard to break through that. So I'm going to start off, and I want you to start off with this question. And I want you to think about this think about your team that you have right now. See if does this hold true? Does this statement hold true for your team? That most employees are motivated, energetic, committed, enthusiastic, and loyal, right? If I could see your faces right now, you'd be able to be rolling your eyes. Wait, I'm sorry. I forgot to end the statement, except for the 8 hours of the day that they actually work for us, right? That's a famous quote from Tom Peters, who is a management guru. And so the question is if most of our employees are good people, they're motivated, they're energetic, they're funny, but when they come to work, it's just like, it's grunt work, right? And they're not really, they're just showing up for a paycheck possibly. And how do we get them and really motivate them to really be enthralled to be able to help us grow our business, help us grow our teams? So that's what we are going to be sitting down and talking about, is how do we break through that barrier? And it starts off with, I'm going to take you within this one slide here. It's called the power of the point. So this point, and I could probably end up talking about this slide for the whole hour if I had the time, but I just want to summarize really here because it's a really important point. Think about employees that you've had that they hadn't worked out, right? There are ones that are on the team that are just maybe possibly driving you crazy. And, these are people that are, they're sort of like lying in bed, and it's opportunity by opportunity is passing them by. They can't figure out why everybody else is successful. They're not. They play the victim, right? Why? Because they're blaming others. They're coming up with excuses, or they might be in denial that they are the problem, right? But then we have these other energetic and really engaged employees, went the wrong way. And these people are taking responsibilities for their action. They're accountable for their results, but most importantly, they're taking ownership of the challenges and the opportunity that come their way, right? When we're below the point, these are like the energy vampires that just suck the air out of the room, right? And as opposed to, the people that are above the point, they have hold of their oars and they have control over their destiny, their success, and they empower everyone else. So as leaders of our organization, where are we? Because we could bring people below the point or we could bring them above. So for an example, let's say a client of ours or an employee of ours made a mistake, right? It might even cost you thousands of dollars. So how do you handle that situation? You sit there and just sort of say, hey, why did you do this? Or what's happening here? And you start being very judgmental to them. But if you want, and so how are they going to respond? Oh, they're going to blame others. They're going to come up with excuses or just denial that they're the problem. So instead of asking judgmental questions, what we need to focus on are learning-based questions, right? Is what happened? What caused this to happen? How could we prevent this in the future? And, helping them to take responsibility of what happened, be accountable. So what is it that we wanted to get? And to really take ownership of this challenge and really take it and own it and being able to make sure that it never happens again. But it's really up to us as leaders in the organization of are we pulling our team down, or we're enabling them to rise up right above the point and to be able to energize them and then everyone else around us. So it leads me to another question. What is the meaning of life? You might be asking me, why am I asking this question? What does this have to do with team building? And I don't mean the old Monty Python movie from the 70s. And yes, I think I'm sort of sharing what my age is right now. But it's all about really understanding that business should not suck the life out of us, but actually should give us more life, right? And, it's the things that if we could find meaning in life, if we could find meaning in the work that people do, and if their work could then provide them meaning, now we could start creating an engaged team. So this is, so we're going to come back to this in a second, but I wanted to bring this up in the beginning, because if we really sit down and look at it, we want to have a happy team. We want to have a good thing. What's the thing that really makes people the happiest, right? Is it more money? Is it good health? Is it more wealth? It's, the things, some of these things might be important to others, but really the studies have shown that really what makes people the happiest is really having multiple and meaningful relationships. Isn't that interesting? So this need is so powerful that, we find that people are flocking to social media sites just to create connections. We'll even find, introverts like myself, right? We're there because we need to have these relationships. So when people connect at work and they're through a common goal, there's a really strong bond that is made. And that bond is one of the keys that really keeps employees sticky to a business, because they don't want to lose that relationship. I've had clients that in the past, their team members would leave and jump ship just for another 50 cents or another buck an hour. And then they end up coming back a year or two later because they realized the environment that they were working in was so toxic, it wasn't worth that those couple of extra bucks. And I think that's things that we need to really sit down and to really realize. So today the focus is employee engagement. So is there really a cost to employee disengagement? Right? And we don't really think about it because it's like an opportunity lost. But there is a great loss and the cost itself is really hard to define, but believe me, there really is a cost. So what I'm going to try to do is demonstrate to show you where the areas that disengagement is costing the profitability in your business, your departments, or where you're at. So let's talk about the different types of engagement within an organization. So first, we have these people that are highly disengaged. These are employees that do less than expected. They're actually very toxic. They're the toxic employees. They're the ones that are sucking the energy out of the room, if you will, right? Then we just have the disengaged, right? These are employees that just show up, do what are expected, clock in, clock out. They're basically working for a paycheck. They don't really care about anything else. Then finally, now we have highly engaged employees that these are the people that do more than expected, right? They look at they look at their role, and the output of what it is almost like as an owner of the business or the manager of the department, and they want to make sure that the department succeeds, the business is succeeding. So what is the cost of this? So now if we sit down and we take a look, I love this analogy, there was a study that was done by Gallup. And what they said was they looked at how the type of engagement across the American employment sphere. So what they found is that 52% of the American workforce is actually disengaged. They just show up for a paycheck. That's crazy, isn't it? Right? And then when we sit down and take a look at the actively disengaged, that's even worse. That's like 18%, almost 20% of our workforce are those energy vampires that's just sucking the energy out of the room. They're the ones that are the weight that's slowing down our business, or they're the ones that are throwing the anchor out of the back of the boat and just slowing us all down. And then what it really comes down to is that we look and we see that it's 30% or 20%, 30% of our teams are engaged, right? So they're the ones that are really pushing our business forward. And it's no wonder that we lose these employees, because they're doing all the work and they just get burnt out, where they see all these other people just getting by. And eventually, they get down and we lose them into the disengaged category, right? But so when we sit down and we look at it, I love the analogy of the boat, because have you ever watched the Olympic rowing teams? If just one of those rowers pulls faster, or maybe if they raise their oar a little bit higher, that boat starts to turn and can actually eventually tip. And for our businesses, it's really the same thing. If we're not all rowing together, we're going to head off course, and we're going to eventually, our business is going to flip over, right? So everyone has to be 100% engaged. Is that possible? That's probably a tough feat, but maybe what we could do is get 80% engaged and maybe 20% disengaged, right? Or at least at the very least, get rid of the disengaged, the actively disengaged employees, and flip flop and have it be, 50-50, right? That would help our businesses succeed so much. Why? Because there's a real cost, because the study went in and continued on, and they found out that of of these employees, these toxic employees, that 34% of their salary is wasted. So these disengaged employees are not working on all 16 cylinders, if you will. So if you think about that, for every $10,000 you pay a disengaged employee, it costs you $34,000. If that employee is a $50,000 employee, that's $17,000 a year. That's really costing you into your bottom line. And so by us figuring out how do we create engagement and get rid of these toxic employees, it's going to be a way to be able to save ourselves profitability, and really create an atmosphere that will start attracting the best in our industry to come to work for us. So first point, the first thing we need to look at is, how do we deal with these toxic employees? So and really, what is the cost of having them on the team? So, let's say that we have a staff member, an employee that maybe just doesn't fit your culture, right? They kind of make you feel like they're holding you hostage. You'd rather let them go, but you're like, I feel I can't. And, that's happened to a lot of us, right? Well, right now, I'm going to be sharing with you some strategies to be able to identify who these people are, what to do about it, and help to illuminate what the costs they are to your business, what the cost really is. So if you ever felt hostage by a challenging employee, and I don't necessarily mean that they're a bad person, they're probably good at what they do, but maybe they're just not a good fit to your culture or your company. They're not a good player. Maybe they just have a bad attitude. I like to give them as the analogy is, they're sort of like our kids that are always testing and pushing our boundaries, trying to see what can they get away with. They know they got us, right? Because they had these people have a really good skill level, and we just can't let them, but we let them get away with it, right? So how are we supposed to deal with it? So the challenge with these folks really is, if you really look at it, the main challenge is not them, it's us. Is we don't want to let them go because they're really good at what they do, but they're the challenge, right? Because they really maybe just don't get along with everybody. They have that me mentality and not the we mentality. And hopefully I'm making a little bit of sense here. So let's take a look at this chart that I put together to see how we could break down and how these toxic employees, how they can affect our organization. So if we look here, think of this grid that I have here. It's a 2x2 grid. On the bottom axis is attitude. On the left hand, it's a not so good attitude. On the right hand, it's a better or a good attitude. All right, simple enough. So on the vertical axis is our skill level. So on the lower end, it's not so great skill, and on the top end, they have really good skills. So the question right now is, where do we put our employees? Where do we fit that A employee in our organization? So we kind of like to think that our A employees, they're the ones that have a great attitude, great skill. So it's relatively easy. They're going to fit over here in the top right-hand corner. But now, what do we do with the D players, right? Now, D players are the ones that they probably were a hiring mistake. We probably should have let them go and try to pursue success somewhere else, right? But they really shouldn't. We shouldn't have really brought them on in the first place. It's easy to see these people have low skills, low attitude, poor attitude, and obviously these people belong in the bottom left share. These people are relatively easy for us to identify, and these are the people that we can easily let go of. And now this is where it gets a little bit harder. So, and this is where it gets tricky. So now what do we do with B players? When I ask a lot of clients or different business owners about this, what they say is, well, they have good skills. You have to be a good skills to have a B. And so we're going to put them in the top left, right? And so, yeah, but I'm going to push them back a little bit. I'm going to say that these B people belong in our bottom right. Why? Because they have a great attitude. They might have some skills, but they haven't developed those skills at all to the level that we need them yet to be an A player, but they still have a great attitude. They're willing to learn and so on. So then now that leaves us with our C player, right? And the C player is going to go into the top left, right? So that means that they have great skill, but maybe their attitude maybe isn't where it needs to be. So the question in the organization now is, if this is where people sort of plot out, is what happens if we keep C players in our organization? And guess what? Most of us sort of do, because it's difficult to get rid of them because they have this really good skill set, right? And we're afraid to let them go because, what's going to happen? Who's going to fill in their skill? What's going to happen when they're gone? So what happens is, imagine this. Let's say you have this A player and a C player, and you put them together with the C player. So we know what we've been talking about. The C player doesn't have a good attitude. They're pressing buttons. They're taking advantage a little bit. They're helping push these boundaries that we were been talking about. Well, the C player, if they're partnered with an A player who's doing a great job, they have a great attitude, and they're also playing by the rules. And then this person, then they see the C player not doing the same thing. They're still getting good results, but they're not playing by the same rule book, right? Now, as an A player has this prolonged exposure to the C player, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to develop a bad attitude. They're going to start morphing into that C player. Isn't that interesting? So let's take a look at this in here. So because it's that attitude of entitlement or pushing the boundaries and getting away from things with things, is that it's infectious. It can affect other people because they see the other people getting away with it, doing less and less contribution, less teamwork and whatnot. But, remember, it's us. It's what we allow, we encourage. So if you let that C player continue like that, you have then the possibility to have an A player affected negatively. So now the thing is a person can easily shift their attitude downward. It's a lot more difficult to shift an attitude to the positive. And that's why when you sit there and you look at most C players, they never want to get better in terms of attitude. They don't want to, they don't really even think they have a problem. And, maybe they're not, but the thing is that they're still not a really good fit for our organization. So we want to make sure that we don't keep our C players on, because they're going to impact our A players. And then that's not really good. That really sucks. So now what happens is, now guess what happens if we put the C player and couple them with a B player? So let's remember who that B player is. The B player has this great attitude, but they don't have the skills yet. They're still developing the skills to be able to excel in their role. Now, if they're going to be hanging around with the C player, they're going to start having an attitude change as well. And this means that C player is going to also morph. They're not going to morph into a C player because they don't have those skills yet. They're going to morph into that D player. And now we got a real problem. We got fewer Bs and we got more Ds. And now we're going to have a lot more turnover issues, productivity issues as well. Does this make sense? Right? So, but on the other hand, if we put in position a B player and have them start hanging around with A players, Another person that has a great attitude, these people are going to probably want to mentor them and help them out a little bit. And the B player wants to get better, and because basically they had this great attitude. So if we pair up a B and an A, the B is obviously going to get better. If we pair either an A or a B with a C, or if they're exposed to them in the organization, their attitude is going to shift to the negative. They're going to be affected by that energy vampire, and now we have a real challenge. And maybe we start seeing how this is developing within our workplace. And so I hope that this tool has been kind of helpful for you, in terms of being able to determine who we need to have on our team and who our A and B and C players are. The D's are the obvious, they're easiest. Those are the ones that they're easy. We know they don't belong on our team. But it's the C's that are really the hardest to get rid of. And also the thing that you're going to realize and you're going to see is after you finally let that C player go, because you realize that they're not the right fit, now you're going to have your A and your B players coming up to you and thanking you because they've been exposed to this negativity and this poor attitude, and they've been like wondering what took you so long to be able to get rid of them, right? So this is a little tool and exercise that you could use with your current team and see where do they fit as opposed to attitude and skills, and now see how do you have to then pivot to make these adjustments. Because the important thing is A and B is about creating engagement, and it's all about that culture of positivity, the culture of growth. And when it really comes down into today's workplace, it's engagement and culture is the number one necessity for businesses today. Because if we sit down, think about people that are on your team that maybe aren't so engaged. What is it that they do, right? They're watching the clock. Maybe they're taking long lunch breaks or just breaks in general. And they're focusing on unimportant issues that the thing is that they have no control over, but they're obsessing with them, right? They're playing the victim, they're blaming others, and they're really judgmental. But now if we take a flip that and we take a look at who are employees that are really engaged, is these people are proactive. They're looking at that learning as an opportunity. They're looking to grow. They're looking to become more. They're taking responsibility for their actions. They're accountable for their results. And most importantly, they're now taking ownership of those challenges that are coming their way. And they're the ones that are building your business. Because the secret is that you don't grow your business, your team does. And that's where people get stuck within different organizations. So some people think that, okay, yeah, all right, I need more engagement, so let's just do some more training. But the thing is that company training is the least desirable way to learn. So because when we think of training, I want you to think that training is good to train a skill or a task. Engagement is something different. Because when we sit down, you can't train engagement. It has to be developed. Training is more transactional, where when you talk about engagement is more transformational, right? It's more like growing instead of just doing more. So the thing is that for someone to be more engaged, they don't need more information. What do they need is they need more action. Which one do they need, right? So when we look at our employees as we bring them into the average organization, if you take a look at this model, they come in, new employees come as sheep, right? They just go to follow the pack, go wherever they're going. They're trying to just figure out the landscape of the organization. And then they figure out, okay, so for me to get ahead, I got to get noticed, right? And I gotta stand out. So now they went from that sheep mentality to the me mentality. It's all about me. What can I do to improve, to stand out, to be made noticed here, so I can get more from the organization. But then we need to have a shift to taking them now to this third level, which is the we mentality, where we understand that all of us together really achieves more. When we work together to help each of us reach a common goal for the organization, but at the same time, we're each helping each other to get us what we each individually need in our own personal life, if that makes sense. So what I want to do is let's go back and review. So before I sort of took a look at the engagement, disengagement scale and broke them up into three different categories. I want to break them down a little bit more. So when we sit down and we look at it, on the bottom two levels of the 6 levels of employee engagement, is we got these rebels that are about to, these are the rebels within our organization. They're about to quit. These people are consistently doing conscientious disobedience, right? And then, so most of these people, we know that these are like our Ds. They need to be going out the door. Then we have the next level. There's the willing accomplice. They're getting along, they're doing well. And then there's the other one that's doing it, but they at least have a positive attitude about it, right? So the willing compliance, they're not negative, they're doing okay, but they're still not totally engaged. At least now when we have this cheerful cooperation, we're beginning to get a little bit of engagement out of it. But then that leads us to the next thing. Then we have the 5th level, which is wholeheartedly totally committed to our organization, our vision, and our mission within it. And these are the people that really get excited coming to work. But then you have this next level that it's creative excitement. And what is creative excitement? These are people that are coming up with great ideas that will take your business, your department, and take it to that next level. They're looking at ways to be able to grow your business, not just help you reach your goals, right? Is looking at ways to be able to expand out of the company's comfort zone and really help to take your business to the next level. And when we sit down and we look at it, it's these bottom 3 people are disengaged, but that willing compliance, these are people that we could probably bring up and bring them into, at least get them into that cheerful cooperation and stuff. If we give them a common goal, if we give them a purpose of what they to achieve something, right? And then when we look at it, these top 3 is really about engagement. These are the people that are engaged. So what's the secret? What's the key to unlocking this engagement in people? And it comes down to, it's sort of simple, is we have to activate the heart. We have to activate the emotions. And I mean, personally, for me, that's a little bit hard because I'm not an emotional person. I'm just but you have to be able to, what I mean by heart is we need to be able to understand what are the things that really drive this person? What is most important to them, right? And then when we sit down, a lot of times with my clients, I create what I call as a team alignment. These are workshops that we do every year to align their team to the company goals. And I've done this with teams of, 4 or 5 in a small property and casualty insurance company to teams that are much larger than that. It doesn't make a difference, but the format's the same. But what we start off with and we look at is we get the leaders of the organizations. If it's a larger organization, it's leader. If it's a smaller one, we can bring everybody in. And I ask them a question. I go, what are the things that we could do to improve our organization? Right? And they're just sort of living, okay, we got these challenges here. These are our bottlenecks. And then once we have this list, I say, okay, let's break things out. Let's break things out into which ones tend to be more brain issues, like our processes, systems, management areas, or our products, different procedures, and which of these problems fall more into a heart category, which are our behaviors, engagement, communication issues, leadership issues, culture issues, right? And once we sit down and we break these down, what we're going to realize is you're never going to fix the brain issues until you fix the heart issues, because they won't have the desire or want to fix these other issues. They're just going to show up and just day by day and just do the same thing. Nothing's going to motivate them to want to change. Does that make sense? All right, so what we need to do, what is really the focus then, the next step is we need to develop a culture within our organization that promotes growth, that promotes learning and improvement. And we need to then, from these things, we need to really look at it and develop a list of what I call success behaviors. In the past, a lot of them would call them, what's the values of our organization, right? But values don't really mean anything. Sometimes these values are points of culture. They're a nice sign on the wall, but they don't go from that wall into the person's heart. So what are the things that we need to do to engage and to transform the people to that these behaviors really stick? So what I want to do is show you two examples from two different clients of mine that had that created their success behaviors. And if you could see, they're very similar, but then they're also different. And the difference has to do with the personality and the actual values of that particular business leader or owner. So we take a look at the first one. So we got pursuing excellence, doing what's right. You know, I like using this one is, you know, I talked about before about our culture statements, our values, and we put them up on the sign on the wall. Well, there's a company we all know is Enron, right? And in their office, and I don't know if it was Houston or Dallas, somewhere in Texas, they had their values etched in marble at the front desk in their office. And the top value was integrity. And obviously we could see that got so stuck into that wall as it never made it into the hearts of the leadership team within that organization, right? But that's because that people don't really understand what integrity means, right? So because it's a value, and values are hard to explain. But in this case, what I'm doing is I'm helping my clients turn that value into a behavior, because behaviors are easy to see. So what my client did here is they took the value of integrity and turned it into the behavior of doing what's right. Right? That's the important thing, because I can understand, I could see when somebody is doing something right, right? And, you know, I could see somebody doing positive. These are behaviors. These are recognizable things that we could sit down and take a look at within our company and our team to really sit down and really show us of are they acting, right? And here's the other example is be open to learn, teach, and grow, believe in excellence and results, be kind, respectful, humble, be loyal to each other, be grateful, work hard, have fun, be safe, be accountable. So these are all action oriented. These are like verbs of things that we need to be. So now when we sit down and we create these team alignments, we're now going in and we're trying to get our team to understand, what does this mean to them? You know, during my clients, as they take these behaviors and they bring them into their sales meetings and into various different strategic meetings and say, okay, this week our the value we're going to be talking, our behavior is open to learn, teach, and grow. What is it? What is something that somebody learned this week, or what is something that you taught somebody this week? And you know, one of the things that I do with a client in it was like 60 plus people. We brought them in, broke them into different tables, and I gave each table a different success behavior. And I told them they had to go in and find somebody that's not at their table that really lived that point of that behavior, and then share why to the organization. And then that really, it built it up in that person. But now people are now recognizing what makes this person more successful than everybody else in the organization. We're now transforming their beliefs, and some people get it and they really strive to get better, and other people, they just don't want to change, and that's fine, because we just help them find success someplace else. So I hope this sort of makes sense of what I'm trying to get across. I'll try to bring some other examples at the end when I give some case studies a little bit. So in wrapping up, there's 6 keys to a winning team right here, right? The first one, it starts with you, strong leadership, right? If you are below that point, if you're blaming others, if you're coming up with excuses or denial that you might be part of the problem or the energy vampire, it's going to roll downhill. there has to be a strong leader in the organization that's helping the team focus on their vision and the mission of where we're trying to go. And most importantly then is setting a common goal. What is the common goal within an organization? A lot of times when I've dealt with small businesses, the common goal is, we want to be a $5 million company, a $10 million, or even a $100 million company. But then when it's focused on the money, it's okay, I'm just doing this to help the leaders get rich, right? That's not a common goal. That's the owner's goal. That's the president, the CEO's goal. So think about it. Everybody wants to work for a winner. Everybody wants to work for a great place. So maybe the common goal is, how do we be known as the best place to work in our industry, or known as the best property and casualty insurance agency in the Southeast, right? So that's our common goal. So now we need to set up the rules of the game. We did that. Those are our success behaviors. That's how we're going to interact with our team members, with our competition, with our clients, with our community at large as well. And then from there, we're going to go in and help them to create an action plan, or actually they're going to help us create an action plan. I mean, one of the things that I do in our team alignments is, we create this common goal. And I said, okay, so if we want to be the best in our industry, what does that look like? And I get them to describe what it looks like. Then I get them to sort of say, all right, how well are we doing in it? And then, all right, which three, if we were to improve, would have the biggest impact on our organization? And we'd let them pick it. And it's like, okay, so what do we need to do to improve in these three areas? And now we take those ideas that came from the bottom up and we turn that into our strategic plan. Right. And then we have to support a little bit of risk taking of letting them get out and try to execute this. And sometimes what we're going to do is you're going to find that people are going to sort of fall on their face because they're moving a little bit maybe outside of the comfort zone. They're going to make mistakes. But then again, how are we dealing with it? Are we dealing with it as a learning experience, or are we reprimanding them and sort of putting them in their place? And then the final key is there has to be 100% involvement. Because if you have that 1C player that's hanging around your team, they're the ones that are sucking the energy out of this team. And they're always going to be complaining about something. They're always going to be blaming, they should be doing this, we should be doing that. And not really taking ownership of that they might be the problem themselves. Right. So this is, I love that. Vicki, that's great. You're going to be the best. All right. Hopefully I can help you get there. So, but this is the things that we need to talk about. So the most important thing is for winning teams is, what are the things that we need to know is we want to get the right people on the bus. Right. And, so if I ask you this right now, I want you to think about it. If you were to start your business or building your department over right now, tomorrow, right? How many people, and this is including yourself, would you rehire? Interesting question, isn't it? Right? So if we want to build a business that wants to attract the best in the industry to work for us, not just hiring whoever's out there, have we created a company or a department that they actually want to work for? Would they actually want to come and live our values? Or are we looking for people that just want to come over to get a bigger paycheck? Right? They might have, and usually we go after the people with the great skills, but maybe we don't really check on those attitudes, right? So the question we really need to be asking ourselves is, how do I build a company that the best in our industry would want to work for? What would that look like? And that's a really important question that we need to ask ourselves, because we need to make sure that if we want to be the best, we need to have a team that's running on 16 cylinders, right? That's how we get to, that's what every high performance automobile is, right? So if we break down an employee into 16 cylinders, really 6 of those cylinders is just the mind and the body, right? Do they have the body capable of doing it? Do they have the intelligence to do the job, right? And we could train them to do that. This is where those C employees excel, right? Because they're excelling, but they might have that poor attitude. And that's where really the top 5 are, is that heart and spirit is really 10 of those 16 in cylinders. So when we are doing our recruitment, are we hiring for mind and body or heart and spirit, right? And it obviously has to be a combination of both, but where do we weigh it? Are we trying to find C players because they have this great knowledge and they think they're going to be the savior? Or are we trying to hire B players or A players? But those are really hard to find because we have to create the right environment. But what we can do is we could hire B players and train them up to become A players, and that will allow us to try to attract more A players within our organization. Because when you really sit down and take a look at it, the mind and the body, that's the job of the manager, is to train them up and to manage them and make sure everything is working in the right direction. And the heart and the spirit, that's the direction of the leader, is to give us the, what's the thing I'm talking about, is leading us into our common goal, the vision and the mission of our organization, of where we're trying to go, right? What's that common goal, right? And the thing is when you see a leader, who's a leader in the room? If you walk into a boardroom, if there's the true leaders, you really don't know who the leader is. So I like to ask a question. It's like, if anybody owns a dog, or if you see somebody walking a dog, who's the leader? It's the person, right? But who's in charge? Who's running ahead? But it's that leader that's slowly guiding their dog to go to the left, go to the right, to slow down, speed up. And that's what a true leader does. So how do we sit down and we interview this? And part of it is looking at different behavioral assessments. And I just want to share with you 2 that I use that I like. There's a various of them. Everybody has, they all have their strengths and weaknesses. I found that this brought me the best value. So the first one is the DISC assessment. And DISC is all about understanding what our communication style is. I'm not going to go into the detail. I'm just going to explain it in a very high level. But we each have different communication styles. But if I start to communicate to you, if I understand what my style is and I understand what your style is, if I communicate, or your employees, and if you start communicating to your employee and your style not there, they're not gonna get it. You're gonna sit there. I explained everything to them, but they're just not following my instructions. I don't get it. Whereas opposed to, if you communicate in their communication style, they're going to now understand and they're going to be able to relate to you a lot better. And when I've done this with coaching sessions with clients and helping them to understand their communication styles and that of their employees, the response I usually get back from the employees at our next team alignment, I go, oh, have you seen any changes in behavior from it? And they say, yeah, he's finally listening to us. And that comment has always stuck in my head. So we have observable behaviors and emotions. That's what the DISC for. But then what motivates those behaviors? And that's what our motivators assessment does, right? And these are the values that drive the behaviors and the emotions that we have. And it breaks it down into 7 basic core motivating factors. And I'll just give you a quick example of how I use it. So one of the 6, the second one there is economic. So if you have a very high score on an economic, that means that you're really out for that return on the investment. You're always trying to push and do more and whatnot. But if you're on the low end, it doesn't mean you're bad. It just means that you're satisfied with what you have. You don't need more to be happy. Is there a right and a wrong way? No, it's just who we are. We all have different makeups, right? But then the other one, there's altruistic, right? Where if you're really high on the altruistic, these are the people that will give their shirt off their back and they will do anything for you. They really have great empathy for every person. And the other person on the low end, they're more to their self. They're not necessarily really selfish, but they're more concerned a little bit with themselves. That doesn't mean that they're not going to help people, but they're not going to do it at the cost of themselves, right? So now let's say you're hiring for a salesperson, right? And we do this motivators assessment. And one of the things that we look at is they have a low economic. So they're not really looking for that return on the investment, but they have the high altruistic. what that comes down to is they're going to sit down and they're going to be really empathetic when these people says, oh, this insurance, it costs too much, or these products cost us too much. And then it's like they're going to sit down and try to figure a way to get the cheaper model. But somebody that maybe has a little bit of a higher economic, what they're going to do, and even if they have a high economic and a high altruistic, is all about, hey, you know what? This is the best value for you, even though it costs more. This is going to protect you more or give you really satisfy what your needs are. So it's worth the investment, right? So we need to communicate and really understand what the different styles of communication and behaviors are to make sure that they match the position right. So if one of the things, if you guys are interested in learning a little bit more about the DISC, or, one of the things that we find out about here is like when the DISC and motivators are aligned, the person tends to have a little bit more synergy. When they're not, then there's a personal conflict and tension going on in that person. And sometimes it's by putting them in a wrong position that doesn't fit. They might be doing well, but because it doesn't fit their personality, it's providing them extra stress and tension, and that's not good for anybody, right? So if you want to learn more, you can get a free basic DISC assessment by just going to stevegoranson.actioncoach.com and really be able to sit down and focus on on what your profile is. I'm going to go ahead and put that link right now in the chat so everybody could just take that there and just go in, sign up for it, and it will give you a real basic test so you can know what your communication style is. If you want to know more about that, you can give me a call and we could talk about that a little bit more. So when we tie this all together, this is a client of mine here in Jacksonville. I started working with them. They were not making any money. They were in the red. They had about 30 employees. The business owners were really tied into to their business. And now we have over 60 employees. And the thing is that all 60 employees are all working towards that same common goal of trying to be the best in their industry. And they're working with each other. And this is sort of, we did an engagement workshop where that we had like 3 different departments that sort of work together, but most of the people don't know each other in the department. And I just asked them to, let's just take a minute, and I want you to find somebody that you don't know within the organization, and I want you to find out 5 things that you have in common with them. And just after that 5, we found out those 5 things, those people now had a greater connection that they did before. And now they started afterwards. So I found out they were starting conversations. Some of them became friends because they found out they had these connections. And that's really what it's all about. Is now the team is helping them individually be fulfilled as well as growing the business itself. And then this next picture here is at the end, every year we go ahead and they give out awards of the people that own their success behavior. And this is the management team comes in and tries to find the people that really live these behaviors. And these are really things that really that are important to the team, and it's a meaningful award. And not just being, oh, I'm the top salesperson. They give out some, but this is probably the one that meant the most to them. And I found that to always be very interesting and whatnot. And then this last client of mine is that I coached them for about 11 years until eventually the business owner was able to sell the business, and we're able to sell the business because their team was doing the business and not him. And see, they do non-destructive testing. I don't know if you know what that is. I still don't know after working with him for like 10 or 12 years or whatnot. All I know is that they're in the waste to energy industry, and he works with these big plants that burn garbage and turn it into electricity. All right. But their problems, your problems, all business problems are all the same. It doesn't make a difference what you do. We all have the same team issues. And what we sort of sat down is every year we would get together for a team day and align them to our success behaviors, our points of culture. And and the amazing thing was that the business owner never had, the reason he created value is his team started doing the work and he never had to, right? He was able to step out, and that's what allowed him to really go in and sell the business. And there was the story of one of their team leaders. Well, actually, when we first hired them, we used some different assessments. And the business owner, when he was offering the job, he looked at it, he showed him his assessment. He goes, basically what this is telling me is that you are perfect. You're a perfect fit for this position. And I know you're going to do extremely well. And it ended up being that person was the lead person and sort of took over running the company after he sold it. Or actually, even while he was there, he was the main guy that was doing all the work. And he shared with me a story that they were out on this job, and it was like they were in between shifts because they go on a 24-hour basis because they go in, they have to shut down these plants because the burners aren't going, and test it for making sure they're not going to blow up, right? And so they were in between shifts, and the plant manager is up above and he's watching the team, and he's going in there, and they sort of notice him, and he's shaking his head, and then he calls up the team leader. And now he's like worried. It's like, what did we do, right? And so he gets up there and the guy goes, "What's wrong with your team?" And now he's like really worried. What do we do? And it's like, he goes, "Well, no, what I mean is like, I see you guys are like in between shifts and everybody understands what they're trying to do. There's some guys are cleaning equipment, and you're telling everybody what to do, where everything's at. When I see other companies coming in and they're doing different shifts for different things, it's like a total disarray. There's no communication between the two shifts. And I always find that there's always problems with that. And that all became because this team was totally aligned to their success behaviors. And what they found is that when somebody actually came in and they hired somebody and it wasn't a really good fit, what they did then was they told the boss, and within a week that guy was gone, right? Because they wanted to protect that culture that they created, because it was for them, it was sort of family, because they'd be out on the road for a couple of weeks at a time on there. So they don't want people that didn't fit into their culture. So I hope that these stories sort of make some sense to you and understand what the power of implementing these ideas into your business, because it really talks about this cycle of business, and it sort of sums up everything that we're talking about. Because on the top of this cycle is you have the business owner or the department head or leader of the organization. And usually as you come in and you're focused on everything, and you're trying to do all the stuff in the business, and you're doing everything, and then you run and you can't get everything done. So you need to hire some more people. And then who gets left out? Who gets left out is the customer, right? But and we sort of like are spinning our wheels when we go that way. But really, the thing that I want you to leave with and understand is that the leader of an organization, right, their job is to serve their team, right? How do they serve their team? They serve their team through obviously good compensation, good benefits, but also training and goals and a common goal to move towards, right? Then the team, their job is to serve the customers. How do they do that? Is becoming problem solvers, is helping the customers get what they want, help it be, whether it be on time, on budget, solve a problem or relieve an issue or whatever it is. That's what their job is. It depends on what your product or service is. So then it leaves the customers to serve the business. How does our customer serve the business? By doing more business with us, by referring their friends, families, and whatnot, by paying their bills on time, providing us with great reviews on social media. And then finally, now the business can support the business owner or the leader or the organization through pay, through free time, through bonuses. That's the most important thing. But when we're focusing in, and we're focusing more on ourselves than on others, if everybody on our organization is also understands who they're supposed to serve, then it all comes together. And really what happens then is it creates synergy. So it's not that 1 + 1 = 2, but 3, 4, 5, 6, and more, and are engaged. And that's how really an engaged team can provide so much more value and thus profitability to an organization. And that's really the bottom key of what I really wanted to talk about today. And right, I'm going to leave you here with Brad Sugars, who's the founder of Action Coach. And he says, where you're going to be in 3 to 5 years is going to be really depend on the books you read, the people you associated with, and most importantly, the actions that you can take. So here, there's two directions that you can go. You could say, hey, Steve, hey, thank you so much for all this information. I'm going to take this information. I'm going to start implementing it right away. Go for it. I'm so happy you were able to get some good stuff. Or you might say, hey, but I'm really interested in getting some massive results. I wanted to really create a more engaged team. What's the next step? How can you help me with this, right? And that's what I want to offer everybody here that is interested, is a free strategy session. We talked about a lot of things in general, but during the strategy session, what we're going to do is take the information that you learned and start talking about how can you apply it into your business. And then, if at the end of that conversation, if you want to see how I can help you with that implementation and help you and guide you and coach you through that, that could be the next conversation as well. So to go in and look at my calendar, just go to strategysession.com. I'm going to go ahead and post that again in the chat as well for everybody here. Boom. And you can just click on that and go ahead and schedule. Because it really, when it sums down to, when you really, by working with me as your business coach, you're going to really learn how to generate more cash flow, profits, be able to develop more teamwork, more free time. And again, if you wanted to really meet with me, let's just schedule that free strategy session. It's a 1.5 hour time that we can then focus on really how you can apply this information to your business. So again, I want to thank you very much. These are some different ways that you can connect with me. I think everybody here is connected with me on LinkedIn as well. There's the strategy session and then the free DISC assessment as well. And those links are in the chat box as well. So if I see there really is, I tried to answer some of the questions that sort of popped in as they came along, but if you don't have any other questions, I wish you guys much success, happiness, and prosperity. And we'll look out for our next webinar that was going to be in 1 month from today. All right, everybody, take care. Have a great day.